Of course, we didn't mean to face that, or those, which we knew had been there. We felt they must be gone by now. They would by this time have found the other neighboring entrance to the abyss and have passed within to whatever night black fragments of the past might await them in the ultimate gulf. The ultimate gulf had never been seen. They had never seen. Or if that entrance too was blocked, they would have gone on to the north seeking another. They were, we remembered, partly independent of light. Looking back to that moment, we can scarcely recall just what precise form our new emotions took, just what change of immediate objective it was that so sharpened our sense of expectancy. We certainly did not mean to face what we feared, yet I will not deny that we must have had a lurking unconscious wish to spy certain things from a sudden, but hidden vantage point. Probably we had not given up our zeal to glimpse the abyss itself, though there were intersposed a new goal in the form of that great circular place, or shown in the crumbled sketches we had found. We had once recognized it as a monstrous cylindrical tower, figuring in the very earliest carvings, but only appearing as a prodigious round aperture from above. Something about the impressiveness of its rendering, even in these hasty diagrams, made us think that its subglacial levels must still form a feature of peculiar importance. Perhaps it embodied architectural marvels as yet unencountered by us. It certainly was of incredible age according to the sculptures in which it figured. Being indeed among the first built in the city, its carvings if preserved could not be but highly significant. Moreover, it might form a good present link with the upper world, a shorter route than the one we were so carefully blazing, and probably that by which those others had descended. At any rate, the thing we did was to study those terrible sketches, which quite perfectly confirmed our own. Let's start back over to the indicated course to the circular place. The course which we named, or our nameless predecessors had must have traversed twice before us. The other neighboring gate to the abyss would lie beyond that. I need not speak of our journey, during which we continued to leave an economical trail of paper, for it was precisely the same kind as the step by which we had reached the cul-de-sac, except that it tended to adhere more closely to the ground level than descend to basement corridors. Every now and then we could trace certain disturbing marks in the debris or of litter underfoot. And after we passed the radius outside of the gasoline scent, we were again faintly conscious, spasmodically, of that more hideous and persistent scent. After the way we branched from our 400 course, we sometimes gave the rays of our single torch a furtive sweeper along the walls, noting in every case the well-nigh omnipresent sculptures, which indeed seemed to have formed a main aesthetic outline of the old ones. About 9:30 p.m., after traversing a vaulted corridor, whose increasingly glaciated floor seemed to have somewhat below the ground level and whose roof grew lower as we advanced, we began to see some strong daylight ahead, and we were able to turn off as we advanced. We began to see strong daylight ahead, and we were able to turn off our torch. It appeared that we were coming to the vast circular place, and that our distance from the upper air could not be very great. The corridor ended in its arch surprisingly low for these megalithic ruins, but we could see much through it even before we emerged. Beyond there stretched a prodigious round space, fully 200 feet in diameter, strewn with debris and containing many choked archways corresponding to the one we were about to cross. The walls were, in available spaces, boldly sculptured in spiral band floral proportions, and displayed, despite the destructive weathering caused by the openness of the spot, in artistic splendor far beyond anything we had encountered before. The littered floor was quite heavily glaciated, and we fancied that the true bottom lay at a considerably lower depth. But the salient object of the place was the titanic stone ramp, which eluded the archways by a sharp turn outward in the open floor. Wound spirally up the stupendous cylindrical wall like an inside counterpart of those once climbing outside the monstrous towers or ziggurats of ancient antique Babylon. Only the rapidity of our flight and the perspective which confounded the descent with the tower's inner walls had prevented our noticing this feature from the air, and thus caused us to seek another avenue to the subglacial level. Abity might have been able to tell us what sort of engineering held in place, but Danforth and I could merely admire and marvel. We could see mighty stone corbels and pillars here and there, but what we saw seemed inadequate to the function performed. The thing was excellently preserved up to the present top of the tower, a highly remarkable circumstance in view of its exposure, and its shelter done much to protect the bizarre and disturbing cosmic sculptures on the walls. As we stepped out into the awesome half-daylight of this monstrous cylinder bottom, 50 million years old and without doubt most primally ancient structure ever to meet our eyes, we saw that the ramp traverse sides stretched dizzily up to a height of 60 fully feet. This, we recalled from our aerial survey, meant an outside glaciation of some 40 feet, since the yawning gulf we had seen from the plane had been at the top of an appropriately 20-foot mound of crumbling masonry, somewhat sheltered for 3/4 of its circumference by the massive curving walls of a line of higher ruins. According to the sculptures, the original tower had stood in the center of an immense circular plaza and had been perhaps 500 or 600 feet high, with tiers of horizontal discs near the top, and a row of needle-like spires along the upper rim. Most of the masonry had obviously toppled outward rather than inward. A fortunate happening, since otherwise the ramp might have been shattered and the whole interior choked. As it was, the ramp showed sad battering, whilst the choking was such that all the archways at the bottom seemed to have been recently half cleared. It took us only a moment to conclude that this was indeed the route by which the others had descended, and this would be the logical route for our own ascent, despite the long trail paper we had left elsewhere. The tower's mouth was no farther than the foothills, and our waiting plane then was the great terraced building we had entered. And any further subglacial exploration we might make on this trip would lie in this general region. Oddly, we were still thinking about other possible later trips, even after we had seen and guessed. Even after all we had seen and guessed. Then we picked our way cautiously over the debris of the great floor, and then came a sight which at the time excluded all other matters. It was a neatly huddled array of 3 sledges in that farther angle of the ramp's lower and outward projecting course, which had hitherto been screened from our view. There they were, the 3 sledges missing from Lake's camp. Shaken by a hard usage which must have included forcible dragging along great reaches of snowless masonry and debris, as well as much hand portrait over utterly unnavigable places. They were carefully and intelligently packed and strapped, and contained things memorably familiar enough. The gasoline stove, the fuel cans, the instrument cases, provision tins, tarpaulins, obviously bulging with books, and some bulging with less obvious contents, everything derived from Lake's equipment. After what we had found in that other room, we were in a measure prepared for this encounter. The really great shock came when we stepped over and undid one tarpaulin, whose outlines had peculiarly disquieted us. It seems the others as well that Lake had been interested in collecting typical specimens, for there were 2 here, both stiffly frozen and perfectly preserved, patched with adhesive plaster where some wounds around the neck had occurred, and wrapped with pat care to prevent further damage. They were the bodies of young Gedney and the missing dog.